Today, the business of beer made for the outdoors.
It's all an adventure. Your work is never done.
Summit brews Dakota Soul Pilsner for people who like life outside. People are passionate about outdoor equipment. Get this. Americans spend more than $20 billion a year on gear. But no one ever really sees how their stuff gets made.
Well, that's where we come in. Each week, we throw open the factory doors and give you a behind-the-scenes look at how your favorite gear is made.
Made for the outdoors.
Summer nights around the campfire, no place I would rather be. Tonight's flavor, Dakota Soul from Summit Brewing. Soul, what a name and what a story, especially when you see how Summit beer gets brewed and made for the outdoors.
Summit Brewing sits in the heart of downtown St. Paul, Minnesota, an iconic Midwestern brand in an iconic beer town.
St. Paul rivaled, in Minneapolis as well, rivaled Milwaukee just as much as St. Louis. In a 12-pack?
That's Mark Stetrud, owner, operator, and the brains behind Summit. A brilliant, willful guy who opened the brewery back in 1986 against the better advice of his peers.
Believe me, stubbornness can get you through times of no cash flow.
Mark's dream to develop a local niche brand, but just look at the place now.
I grew up with the family value that you make something for a living. And so when you think about making something for a living, you know, beer certainly is a dream.
Summit beer consists of 4 main ingredients: water, hops, barley, and yeast. The secret to really good beer is figuring out how to put all 4 together.
Oh, that smell.
Yeah, you know,
So great.
If it smelled like a barn, we'd be all in trouble.
Mark is going to show us.
Wow.
It takes all this space and all this gear to make beer. Well, lots of it.
This is where it starts.
Absolutely, and it starts where all of the bulk malt, what we call pale malt and caramel malt, which has been lightly roasted, is coming out of the main malt silo.
Mark calls the barley malts the soul of the beer.
It's no different than composing music. The structure of a waltz is different than bebop or hip hop. Same thing when you think about beer styles. A part of that composition, it starts with the malt.
Today, the team brews Dakota Soul, a Pilsner dear to Mark's family. See, it's made from malt harvested off Mark's family's North Dakota farm.
We're from grain country, and if we do not have a malt signature or the flavor from the grain, we're forsaking our soul. So this is where it all starts right here, and this is how we're so closely connected to the farm.
Milling machines first prepare the malt.
We want to crack open that kernel. We're not making flour.
Goes through the machines and ends up like this.
You want to keep your husk material intact as much as possible.
Yep.
And then that's what you need to convert that starch to sugars in the mash tun.
Ah yes, mash tun. It's one of those brewer's terms. The mash tun is the big kettle where the brewer mixes the malt and water. And this guy is in charge of that process.
You're the guy who makes the beer.
Yeah, someone's got to do it. Might as well be me. I have to cool the sample down
Mike Lundell
to get an accurate reading.
is one of Summit's lead brewers. He is the man.
So I'll just grab that. I just think it's my job, you know? But it's kind of cool.
He's a celebrity. Totally are.
Okay, let's go check out the mashing process.
The mashing process happens in that big copper kettle right there.
Okay, so this is where we take the grain, which has been ground upstairs, and we add it to the water. So we have water and grain getting mixed in here right now. Basically, we're making a really thin oatmeal.
A giant stir stick sort of thing at the bottom mixes the water and grain.
If you look at the mash, there's a little bit of dried material on the top, so I'm just gonna grab this paddle and mix it up a little bit.
These copper kettles have their own story. See, Mark hand-picked these out of an old German brewery.
Siemens is the company in Germany that built these vessels. Well, back when this brew house was constructed in 1971, copper was a very economical construction material to use. Stainless was really expensive at that point. But it's also very traditional to use copper because when you're cooking with copper, the heat transfers evenly throughout.
And there's something totally novel about the classic look of these kettles.
These things are almost as old as I am.
Well, yeah, they were saying, what, 70?
71.
October 71.
I'm not sure the exact birth date of these, but it's probably close. We'll say October 71. I bet these are made the day you were born.
There you go. Let's let the mash of water and barley get going. When we come back, we make a bit of a mess, and I settle in as Dakota Soul comes to life.
Made for the Outdoors is brought to you by Banks Outdoors, Aquarius Home Services, Ellsworth Cooperative Creamery, FVP, and Husqvarna.
If barley is the soul and hops provide spice, water is the baseline of Summit's newest beer. Mark Stuttrud loves the essence of beer, and more so, the brewing process.
I have been hauled into therapy for work addiction, yes. But that's, I didn't consider it a problem, and I still don't.
Mark owns Summit Brewing. With grain and hot water mixed for his Dakota Soul beer, the porridge-like mix goes into a second kettle called a lauter tun. In here, the now sweet liquid separates from the grains. In brewers' terms, the liquid is called the wort, and the grain leftovers called mash.
Right now we're finishing up the lautering process, and we're filling the kettle. We're getting ready to start the boil, which will add the hops.
It is so cool, but that wort trickles through this iconic glass tube where lead brewer Mike Lundell can make sure the liquid looks just right.
So I'll just grab that.
He tests it too.
We check the sugar content to make sure it's not too low.
What's amazing, if you watch Mike, he knows these processes and all the numbers by heart.
We're looking good.
A computer control center helps Mike regulate each batch of beer.
So I just told the computer how much water to add to the kettle here. When that's done, we're at boiling temperature, so we'll start adding the hops at that point.
Ah yes, the hops. Oregon grown. They help introduce flavor, or what brewers call the spice.
The smell in here.
Right now, this is very rich in cereal and grain. It's pretty comforting, isn't it?
Oh, it's one of the finest things on the planet, right?
This whole process, the work of Summit's cool copper kettles.
Even the big boys, the big brewers, consider this kind of stuff archaic and very old-fashioned. The truth of the matter is that it really works.
Okay, let's keep moving. Up next, the whirlpool room. Inside, you can't see it, but a vortex in there separates all the grain and protein particles out of the sweet liquid.
So this is kind of like a filter.
It is a clarifier, absolutely.
Just out of curiosity, the stuff that's left over here, what happens?
I'll actually answer my own question.
What that is? Spent grains from the brewing process, but they're not done with it yet. See, this stuff's headed to the farm. Turns out cattle kind of love some of the same things we do.
Yep, and so we have a receiving tank of where we can load up a semi-trailer, an open trailer within 10 minutes, and then they're on their way to the field.
Those lucky cows. I hope they're hungry. Okay, back to the beer.
Another massive room,
Yeah!
wouldn't you know?
Yeah, when we moved in here in 98, in December of 98, we only had 6 small fermentation vessels, and now we have 24 in this room. We thought, what the hell are we going to do with all this space?
Add more tanks, of course. The team fills all of them nowadays with that sweet wort. Now comes the last key ingredient.
Water is a foundation of beer, malt is a soul, hops are like a spice, but the yeast provides a character.
Yeast mixed in the wort creates alcohol and carbon dioxide, but that takes time. Exactly why these giant Minnesota-made tanks exist.
No, this is one of the most modern fermentation halls or cellars you could walk into of any size brewery today. We have technology here that's been around just a little bit more than 8 years.
Inside these tanks, wort slowly dances with fermenting yeast to produce Dakota Soul beer. Think a very slow dance.
Made for the Outdoors is brought to you by Central Boiler, Summit Beer, Ice Castle Fish Houses, Smoky Hills Outdoors Store, and Magnum Research.
Summit Beer, a St. Paul institution since 1986. With barley malt, water, and hops now brewed, the mix of sweet wort and yeast sits in giant fermentation tanks.
So Dakota Soul sits how long?
A minimum of 6 weeks to 8 weeks.
Which is a lifetime in your business.
It's quite a bit of time because most breweries domestically will turn a lager around in about 21 days.
No problem, Dakota Soul is worth the wait, especially in this high-tech room.
That's pretty awesome to look at. I mean, just on scale alone.
Yeah, you feel a little bit dwarfed.
Think about how much beer comes to life in here.
210,000 beers
Per tank.
per tank.
210,000 servings in one tank. It's a lot of servings when you think about it.
It's one heck of a party.
Actually, Mark's late to the party. A party of sorts.
You should have bright tank 5, bright tank 6, followed by an EPA.
Summit's panel of refined palates
Good lacing. White.
taste test each batch of beer.
No, the balance is nice.
I'm so happy for them.
You're working.
I am working. I'm working hard. I'm putting in the hours.
If the beers pass the taste test,
Brilliant.
they go to Zach Kwan's office.
I mean, it's fun. We have a good time, but I come up here and work every day. I'm a grinder.
He's a chemist.
This is just our quality control department. This particular area we're in right now is our analysis lab.
Zach tests to make sure the beers are all ready to go. And truth be told, Zach says the beer almost always passes.
All right.
Now the brewing process gets loud. Really loud.
I bet you have a lot of people come in here and say, all right, it's simple. You've got an empty can and you're just putting something in it.
Yeah, no, it's extremely complex. Essentially, there's about 6 or 7 steps to put beer into a container. You have to purge that container with carbon dioxide at least twice, pressurize it so that the beer can flow in by gravity and not lose all of your carbonation. It's also extremely important to protect the beer from air.
Summit's canning eliminates too much oxygen from getting into the cans. That means the beer will keep its soul.
Mesmerizing.
Yeah, it
to
is.
me. Absolutely mesmerizing.
Yeah, I mean, and this is something that is basic engineering. We're set up here to do either 12-ounce or 16-ounce cans. And today, as you can see, we're running Dakota Soul in 16-ounce cans. We can go up to 350 cans a minute. And this machine only has one speed. You're either on or off. You want to keep it going. When we run 12-ounce cans, we're running at 400 cans a minute. So it's roughly about 1,000 cases an hour. It's somewhat mesmerizing and hypnotic to begin with. And then when you're looking at all of the moving parts in this room, it's like, oh, okay.
When you see these machines, Laverne and Shirley never had it this good.
That's true.
Right?
That is true. They were always hoping for breakdowns.
Yes, they were.
Of course, the canning and bottling areas, just like everywhere else in this darn brewery, have their own lab.
What we look for in here is basically anything that can go wrong during the packaging process. Quality has the power to stop the line at any time. I wield that power with absolute authority.
That's exactly right.
Only now can Dakota Soul chill out.
When I dream at night, this is what I see. This is the cooler, and all the completed beer ends up here. And you know the crazy thing? They'll turn all this over in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, it's all gone and there's new beer coming in.
That's why Summit keeps churning out the beer and racking up the accolades. All this, the dream of a guy who just loves a beer now and then. And don't forget, he's got a soft spot for the brewing part 2.
You know, beer certainly is a dream. It's something that most of us enjoy. And it also brings us together. There's a deep level of responsibility for us to keep the tradition of brewing going. It's all an adventure. You know, your work is never done.
Made for the Outdoors is brought to you by Escapade Campers, Minnesota Rebath, Border View Lodge, and Absolute Trailer Sales.
I love the art of fly casting. It's all about the chase and moving water. But there is a completely separate part of this sport that draws people in. It's all about this right here, the flies. And you'll understand when you see how these little buggers get made for the outdoors. A Thursday night appetite leads anglers to a back room at the local haunt. A spot where social hour includes eats of a different breed.
Yeah, we meet at Golden's Bar every Thursday night.
Yeah, it's kind of an art. It's probably a debate whether it's an art or a craft.
For sure, tying flies is a skill that takes plenty of practice. Exactly why Minnesota's St. Paul Fly Tyers meet all year long.
Everybody who's part of a club enjoys doing a lot of the same thing, fishing and tying. So it's one way to meet friends and see them every week.
And of course, to create. We sit with Joel Evers. He wants to tie one of his favorite flies.
It's called a Guide's Choice Hare's Ear.
A little sinking bug used to trick trout. He pinches a small hook in a vise and winds on the wire and locks it using thread.
Just to give it a little bit more weight.
Notice the hook also includes a small bead head. Up next,
This is called a coq de leon feather. Just a fancy chicken feather.
Joel uses a few tiny feather strands to create the fly's tail.
I added a piece of wire for the ribbing, and that'll just kind of add some durability to the body and give it a little bit of flash.
More on that in a second, but first, he rolls rabbit fibers onto the thread.
And this is what I'll use to make the body.
Now he winds the material onto the hook, creating bulk for the fly body. He takes that wire he attached a few seconds ago and wraps it on, protecting the fly and adding a bit of flash.
And then we'll add 2 strands of peacock herl and wrap that up to the bead.
Now comes a favorite part of the fly.
And then we'll take a Hungarian partridge feather and wrap it 1 turn around the hook and tie it off.
The the feather strands create a collar that attracts fish.
And this is called a whip finisher, and it just locks down the thread so it won't come unraveled when we're done. And that's it. Looks good. That's done.
See, now if you ask Tony where he's going to get a lot of Nanya River.
Just another night and another social hour, sharing passion and the art of fishing.
It's not my best fly ever, but it'll work.
This just gets me out with other like-minded individuals, and it's fun just to have a drink, talk about fishing, and tie some flies.